The planet Orvath was quiet, too quiet for a world that had once been full of music, laughter, and light. Its blue-green forests stretched across continents, rivers glittered under twin suns, and cities shimmered with technology far beyond most of the galaxy. The Orvathi people had lived in harmony for thousands of years, advancing in science and culture, yet they had never developed weapons for war. They had no armies, no starships, no defenses. And now, that lack of preparation threatened to destroy everything. High above the planet, a fleet of dark, jagged starships appeared, cutting through the blackness of space like predatory shadows. The marauders had come from the far side of the galaxy, feared by all who had heard tales of their conquests. Worlds they had attacked before were left empty and lifeless, their civilizations erased. The Orvathi people had never expected to face. Such terror and panic had spread across their cities like wildfire. In the capital city of Virel, Councillor Lirath watched the horizon through the massive crystal windows of the council chamber. Her antennae twitched nervously, a natural response to fear. "We must act," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "We cannot wait for them to destroy us." Her fellow council members shook their heads. "We are peaceful," one said. "We have no weapons. We cannot fight them." "But we can ask for help," Lirath argued. "There are other civilizations out there. Someone will hear our call. Someone must help us." The council hesitated. Sending a distress signal was a last resort. Once the message was sent, there was no guarantee anyone would respond. And even if someone did, would they arrive in time? The thought of the marauders descending upon their cities before help came was unbearable. Finally, after hours of debate, the council agreed. The planet's largest communication array, the Spire of Voices, was activated. It reached far across the galaxy, broadcasting a simple but desperate message. "To any civilization that can hear us, we are Orvath. We face annihilation. Our people cannot defend ourselves. Please, we beg for aid." The signal was repeated, encoded in multiple languages, repeated over all frequencies, and sent to every corner of the galaxy. The Orvathi people held their collective breath, hoping someone, anyone, would answer their plea. For days, there was silence. The marauders continued their approach, spreading fear and destruction across the outer settlements. Orvathi scientists attempted to create defenses, but their technology was not meant for war. Shields could only protect small areas, and energy weapons were primitive compared to the marauders' arsenal. Families huddled together in homes, praying for a miracle. Then the response came. It was not from a council of distant diplomats, nor from the so-called peacekeepers of the Galactic Senate. It was from humans. Thousands of light-years away in the Sol system, the human fleet commander, Admiral Kara Bren, received the Orvathi distress signal. Humans had long been aware of the marauders' reputation, and most civilizations in the galaxy had feared them. But humans were different. They did not wait, they did not hesitate, and they did not calculate the risk until it was too late. Bren read the message once, then again, and her jaw tightened. She leaned forward and addressed her officers. "We're going. Prepare the fleet. Immediately. They need us, and I promise, they will not be alone." In the fleet command room, preparations were rapid and precise. Humans did not overthink. They acted. Starships powered up, weapon systems activated, and pilots strapped into cockpits. Every member of the fleet knew their duty: protect the innocent, fight the aggressor, and never back down. Meanwhile, back on Orvath, the council watched the sky, waiting for a response. Days passed. The marauders were now within orbital range, sending smaller attack ships to probe the planet's defenses. Panic had begun to take root again. Children cried, parents whispered prayers, and the city's lights blinked nervously. Then a shimmer appeared in the distance. At first, it was just a glimmer of stars, but it grew larger, moving with a speed that no Orvathi ship could match. The humans had arrived. The first human ships entered orbit in formation, sleek and angular, their surfaces reflecting the sun's light. They were armed, but their presence alone brought a strange sense of hope. Orvathi sensors detected the energy, signatures, powerful shields, advanced weapons, and engines capable of speeds no Orvathi vessel could dream of. Counselor Lirath could hardly believe her eyes. She whispered to her aides, They actually came. We are not alone." Admiral Bren addressed the Orvathi Council through the universal translator. Her voice was calm but firm, commanding respect even to those who had never seen a human. "We received your message," she said. "We are here to help. Stay calm, follow our instructions, and we will protect your planet." The Orvathi were stunned. Their civilization had been on the brink of despair, and now humans had arrived, ready to fight. Even the marauders seemed momentarily taken aback by the sudden appearance of such powerful ships. Bren did not waste time. She organized human teams to orbit the planet, setting defensive positions around major cities and critical infrastructure. Small attack squads patrolled the edges of space, ready to intercept incoming marauder ships. The Orvathi watched in awe, as humans moved with precision, efficiency, and confidence, as if battle was second nature to them. In the meantime, the marauders sent a warning message taunting the humans. "Your kind cannot stop us. This planet will fall, and you will regret meddling in affairs beyond your reach." Bren's reply was simple. "Try us." The words carried weight, and the humans' fleet held position, unflinching, while the marauders launched their first attack. Smaller ships darted toward Orvath, attempting to strike cities before the humans could react. But humans were faster, smarter, and more coordinated. Lasers and missiles intercepted the attackers mid-flight, while boarding drones disabled others. Each move was precise, calculated, and effective. Counselor Lirath watched the battle unfold from the safety of the council chamber. Her people's fear was slowly replaced by amazement and hope. "They are incredible," she whispered. "I have never seen anything like this. The humans were not just fighting. They were protecting. Orvathi citizens who had fled to shelters were guided by human teams to safe zones. Energy shields were deployed over hospitals and schools. Even the smallest villages were guarded, as humans made it clear that no life was insignificant. By the time the first wave of marauders retreated, the Orvathi people had seen the humans in action and realized something profound. These beings were not just powerful. They cared. They would not abandon those in need. They would fight for others, even at great risk to themselves. And for the first time in days, the planet felt safe. Admiral Bren surveyed the orbit, her eyes scanning the horizon for any sign of the marauders. She spoke to her officers with quiet determination. "This is only the beginning. They will test us, and we will show them why humans are not to be underestimated. We fight to protect, and we fight to win." The Orvathi had sent a plea for help, and humanity had answered, not with hesitation, not with politics or debate, but with fire and fury. Above the planet, the human fleet waited, ready for the storm to come. The marauders would soon learn that Orvath was no longer defenseless, and that humans were a force unlike any they had ever faced. The skies above Orvath shimmered with the hum of energy shields and the gleaming hulls of human warships. From the surface, the Orvathi watched in awe. Ships moved like predators in perfect coordination, their engines glowing blue as they adjusted positions around the planet. For a species that had never known war, it was a breathtaking display of power. Counselor Lirath could hardly breathe as she peered through the observation window of the council chamber. They are magnificent," she whispered, more to herself than anyone else. Beside her, Aide Carell nodded in agreement, though his voice caught with nervousness. And dangerous, if they turned on us. Lirith shook her head. No, they fight for us. I can feel it. Above the planet, Admiral Kara Bren's flagship, the Intrepid, hovered at the forefront of the fleet. Bren stood on the bridge, surveying the approaching threat with sharp, calculating eyes. Unlike many other commanders in the galaxy, she did not see this as a political mission or a calculated risk. She saw lives at stake, and that was enough. "Status report," she called. Lieutenant Ramos, her communications officer, spoke quickly. "We've established orbit around Orvath's major cities. Marauder scouts are still approaching, but they seem cautious. Our presence alone is causing them to pause." "Good," Bren replied. "Let's make sure it stays that way. Prepare. The orbital defense grid. Position drones around the planet. Civilian evacuation zones are active." Humans worked with methodical precision. Unlike other species, they did not hesitate, debate endlessly, or calculate excessively. They acted. Within hours, the orbital space around Orvath was bristling with human defensive measures. Energy shields hovered above the cities, drone interceptors patrolled the skies, and rapid response teams were ready to deploy wherever needed. On the surface, Orvathi citizens had gathered in the streets, staring at the massive human ships overhead. Children pointed and laughed nervously, while parents whispered prayers of hope and fear. Humans were not just ships in orbit, they were a promise that someone would fight for them, that they would not face annihilation alone. The first contact with the Marauders came sooner than anyone expected. A fleet of dark, jagged ships descended from the outer orbit, their engines leaving trails of red fire. They moved with the confidence of conquerors, expecting little resistance. They had never seen humans before, but they had heard whispers in the Galactic network about a species that fought with courage, cunning, and ferocity. They underestimated what they were about to face. Bren leaned over the tactical console, her eyes scanning incoming data streams. "Deploy interceptors," she ordered. "Target the lead vessels and disrupt their formation. Civilian areas are off limits. Precision only." Within minutes, small human attack craft darted through the void, weaving between marauder ships. They moved with an unpredictability that no AI or conventional tactics could anticipate. Lasers fired, energy shields deflected attacks, and boarding drones latched onto enemy hulls, disabling critical systems. On the planet below, Orvathi families watched the display, their fear slowly giving way to hope. They had sent a plea into the void, and the humans had arrived, fearless and relentless. The sight of small human ships circling massive marauder vessels, disabling them with daring maneuvers, left the citizens awestruck. The marauders, taken aback by the humans' aggression and coordination, tried to regroup. "These creatures are reckless," one of their commanders hissed through the translation systems. "They have no fear. They fight for others. This is unnatural." Bren's voice cut through the comms, calm and firm. "We fight for those who cannot defend themselves. Try to stop us, and you will fail." The Marauders launched their first wave of attacks. Swarms of smaller fighters descended toward the planet, hoping to strike at the Orvathi cities before. The humans could intercept, but the humans were faster, smarter, and everywhere at once. Interceptors tore through the incoming ships, energy beams striking with pinpoint accuracy. Marauder ships that tried to evade were met with boarding drones that disabled their engines. On the surface, Orvathi children clutched their parents' hands, mouths open in awe. "They are protecting us," one whispered. Another nodded. "Not even the Marauders can touch us." Bren watched the battle unfold from the bridge of the Intrepid. Every movement, every calculation had one goal: protect life. The humans' strategy was not only to defeat the Marauders, but also to ensure no Orvathi were harmed in the process. Unlike other species who might have bombarded the enemy recklessly, humans combined precision, courage, and ingenuity. Meanwhile, small human squads prepared for boarding missions. Elite teams, equipped with advanced suits and weapons, floated in the void, ready to breach marauder ships and disable critical systems. It was dangerous work, but humans thrived in risk, using creativity and teamwork to overcome impossible odds. Boarding. "Team's ready," reported Commander Harkin, his voice steady. "Targeting the lead cruiser, shields down by 20%. "Go," Bren said. Human teams moved silently, attaching to the hulls of the Marauder cruiser. Within moments, they breached the interior, disabling engines and communications. Alarms blared across the enemy ship, panic spreading among its crew. The Marauders had never faced opponents like this, unpredictable, relentless, and unafraid. As the first wave of Marauders retreated, the humans maintained their positions, circling the planet like guardian spirits. Bren allowed herself a brief smile. The Orvathi were alive, safe for now, and their confidence in humanity was growing with every passing moment. Counselor Lyrath stood in the observation deck, tears glistening in her eyes. They are saving us," she said softly. "Not because they have to, but because they want to." Kirill nodded. "I don't understand them. No other species would do this without gain. They are extraordinary." Bren, however, was already thinking ahead. She knew the Marauders would not give up so easily. They would return, stronger, more coordinated, and more dangerous. But she also knew something crucial. Humans did not back down. They adapted, they fought with intelligence and creativity, and above all, they refused to leave the innocent unprotected. The first night of the humans' arrival passed without casualties. Among the Orvathi, drones patrolled the skies, and the humans' presence alone deterred further attacks. Families emerged cautiously from shelters, eyes wide with wonder at the massive ships above them. For the first time in days, the planet felt safe. Bren convened, a council of her officers in the bridge of the Intrepid. "This is only the beginning," she said. "The Marauders will regroup. They will test us. But they will learn something important. Humans do not retreat, and we will not allow innocent lives to be destroyed." Meanwhile, Marauder Commander Zaith, in his dark, jagged flagship, seethed. "These humans, they are unlike any race we have faced. They fight with courage, with strategy. They protect those who cannot fight. How is this possible?" His lieutenants shook their heads. "They are reckless, sir, but effective," Zaith snarled. "No, they are dangerous, and we will show them the consequences of interfering." The tension built across the stars, a storm waiting to break. The humans had arrived, unannounced and unstoppable, and the Marauders had no choice but to respond. Orvath, once defenseless, was now under the watchful protection of a species that refused to stand by in the face of injustice. In the days that followed, humans continued to fortify the planet's defenses, establish patrols, and teach the Orvathi basic survival tactics. The Orvathi watched with awe as humans adapted quickly to local conditions, using both technology and instinct to anticipate threats. They realized that humans were not just warriors. They were protectors, innovators, and teachers. Admiral Bren stood once more on the bridge of the Intrepid, looking down at the planet below. "We've bought them time," she said quietly, "but this battle is far from over. Soon they will return in force, and when they do, we will show them what it means to face humanity." Above Orvath, the night sky burned with the glow of human and marauder ships. On the planet below, the citizens slept peacefully for the first time in weeks, and somewhere deep in space, the Marauders began to rethink their plans, knowing that humans were not just fighters. They were a force unlike any they had ever encountered. The story of humanity's intervention had begun, and it would be written in fire, strategy, and unyielding courage. Orvath's defenders had arrived, and the galaxy was about to see the full extent of human power. The black void of space above Orvath was alive with motion. Hundreds of ships moved in calculated patterns, weaving through asteroid fields and planetary rings, while energy beams streaked across the darkness. The Marauders had returned, this time with a larger fleet and a more aggressive strategy. They sought to crush Orvath before the humans could consolidate their defenses. On the bridge of the human flagship, the intrepid Admiral Cara Bren studied the incoming fleet. Her sharp eyes scanned the sensors, analyzing the Marauders' formation, their weapons, and possible weaknesses. "They're aggressive," she said, voice steady. "They think they can overwhelm us with numbers. Let's show them how humans fight." Lieutenant Ramos responded quickly. "All interceptors are ready. Boarding teams prepped. Planetary shields at full power." Bren nodded. "Good. Deploy the drones in a layered pattern around the cities. Civilian evacuation zones remain active. Remember, precision and speed. Unlike other species, humans did not panic in the face of overwhelming odds. They thrived on strategy, courage, and teamwork. Their ships were smaller than the Marauder warships, but they were faster, more agile, and packed with technology that made them unpredictable and deadly. The first wave of battle began as the Marauder ships surged forward, their jagged hulls cutting through space like dark knives. Energy beams tore toward the planet's surface, targeting cities in a display meant to terrorize. But the humans anticipated every move. Interceptors darted through space, lasers slicing through Marauder. Projectiles before they could reach their targets. Drones deployed, creating barriers of energy that deflected attacks and protected civilian areas. From the ground, the Orvathi watched, unable to comprehend the scale of the conflict. Cities glimmered with defensive shields, and the sky was streaked with fire from human lasers intercepting enemy weapons. The planet's once peaceful inhabitants felt a mixture of fear and awe, knowing their fate rested in the hands of humans they barely understood. On board the Intrepid, Bren's tactical console flashed with alerts. One of the Marauder cruisers had broken formation, heading straight toward a densely populated city. "Harkin," she called. "Take a boarding team and intercept. Disable that cruiser before it reaches the city." Commander Harkin's team suited up, their exoskeletons humming with power. In a matter of moments, they were deployed into the void, maneuvering through the chaotic battlefield with precision. Marauder fire streaked past them, but the humans moved with a combination of instinct and technology, dodging lasers and navigating toward the target. They reached the cruiser, attaching magnetic clamps to its hull. Energy shields flared as they breached the vessel, moving silently through its corridors. Marauder crew members scrambled, but they were no match for human ingenuity. Systems were disabled, engines halted, and the cruiser's trajectory shifted away from the planet. Back on the bridge of the Intrepid, Bren monitored the boarding operation. "Excellent work," she said. "Now target the next wave. Keep the civilians safe. No exceptions." Meanwhile, the Marauders were beginning to understand that humans were not like any other species they had encountered. Humans fought not just with power, but with strategy, adaptability, and relentless courage. Smaller teams could disable larger ships. Humans worked together in ways that seemed almost instinctual. In orbit, human starships moved like a storm, unpredictable, yet precise. They used decoys, feints, and ambushes to confuse the enemy. One human vessel darted in and out of an asteroid field, drawing Marauder fire before launching missiles that disabled an entire cruiser. Another used energy shields to create a reflective trap, bouncing Marauder lasers back onto their own ships. The Orvathi below watched in stunned silence. "They are unstoppable," whispered Counselor Lirith. "I have never seen anything like this." As the battle raged, human pilots continued daring maneuvers, weaving through enemy fire, launching surprise attacks, and coordinating flawlessly with the fleet. Marauder morale began to falter. They had expected an easy conquest, but these humans were unlike anything they had faced. On the surface, Orvathi civilians were guided to safe zones by human teams. Hospitals, schools, and shelters were protected by energy shields and rapid response squads. Families huddled together, amazed by the humans' efficiency and bravery. Children watched through windows as small human craft intercepted Marauder, projectiles mid-flight. The Orvathi could not understand the technology fully, but they understood the humans' intent: protect and save. Hours passed, and the tide of the battle began to shift. The Marauders, frustrated and desperate, launched an even larger assault. Massive warships descended, their weapons aimed directly at the planet's core cities. They assumed the humans would retreat or falter under pressure, but humans did not retreat. Bren stood firm on the bridge of the Intrepid, issuing commands with calm authority. "Activate orbital defense net. All ships converge on their flagship. Boarding teams, prepare for final assault. We finish this now." Human ships surged forward, moving with astonishing speed. Energy beams lanced through space, intercepting Marauder fire while drones created barriers around civilian zones. Boarding teams targeted the flagship, breaching its hull and disabling critical systems from within. Marauder soldiers, trained for intimidation and conquest, were no match for human tactics, resilience, and adaptability. The flagship faltered, engines sparking and shields flickering. Human ships pressed the advantage, striking with precision and coordination. Marauder ships attempted to cover their retreat, but humans anticipated every move, cutting them off with brilliant strategy. On the planet below, Orvathi citizens felt the first wave of fear and uncertainty transform into hope. Their protectors were not only fighting, they were winning. Children cheered. Adults whispered prayers of gratitude, and for the first time in weeks, the streets were alive with cautious optimism. Bren's voice cut through the comms again, firm but resolute. "This ends today. Marauders will retreat, and Orvath will survive. We fight not for glory, but to protect. Remember that." The humans' final assault was relentless. Small teams infiltrated enemy vessels, disabling engines, weapons, and communications. Larger ships used coordinated strikes to dismantle enemy formations. Every move demonstrated not just power, but ingenuity and courage. Marauder commanders could not comprehend the humans' determination, nor their willingness to risk everything to protect another species. By the end of the battle, the Marauder fleet had been shattered. Their ships were destroyed, disabled, or fleeing in disarray. Casualties among the humans were minimal compared to the overwhelming advantage they had gained through strategy and precision. On Orvath, citizens emerged from shelters, cheering as the last Marauder ships fled the skies. Counselor Lyrith could hardly believe her eyes. They saved us," she whispered, tears streaming down her face. "Not because they had to, but because they wanted to." Bren allowed herself a brief moment of satisfaction on the bridge. "We've won today," she said quietly, "but we remain vigilant. They will regroup, and next time, they may be stronger." But even as the humans celebrated their victory, a clear message had been sent across the galaxy. Humans were not just fighters. They were protectors. A species that combined intelligence, courage, and compassion in ways the Marauders could not comprehend. Orvath had survived, and the galaxy had witnessed the fury and fire of humanity in full measure. The Orvathi had sent a plea for help, and humanity had answered. Not with hesitation, not with caution, but with overwhelming force, precision, and unyielding determination. The Marauders had underestimated them, and now their defeat was a lesson that would echo across the stars. Humans were not a species to challenge lightly. As the dust settled above Orvath, Admiral Bren addressed her fleet. "This planet is safe for now, but our work is not done. Humanity will always protect the helpless, And today we have shown what that means. And far across the galaxy, whispers spread among other civilizations. Humans had arrived in Orvath, and their legend of courage, ingenuity, and unstoppable determination was only beginning. Above the planet, the night sky cleared. The stars shone down on cities that had been saved, on lives that had been protected, and on a species that had witnessed the full measure of human fire and fury. Orvath was alive, and humanity had ensured it would remain so. The calm after the battle was deceptive. Orvath's skies sparkled with the remnants of energy shields and the distant glow of retreating marauder ships. But the humans knew this peace would not last. Marauders did not accept defeat lightly. Somewhere beyond the visible horizon, a larger fleet was gathering, more determined, more brutal, and hungrier for revenge. On the bridge of the Intrepid, Admiral Kara Bren studied incoming reports. Sensors detected the faint signatures of multiple marauder fleets converging from different sectors. "They are regrouping," she said, "and they're stronger than before. But they don't know what they are up against." Lieutenant Ramos nodded. "We can't just wait for them to strike. We need to anticipate their attack." Bren's eyes narrowed. "Exactly. Deploy reconnaissance drones to track all incoming forces. Set traps along the likely approach vectors. We fight smarter, not just harder." Humans had a way of doing things other species could not anticipate. Where others relied on sheer force, humans combined strategy, adaptability, and unpredictability. They understood that war was not only about destroying the enemy, but protecting the vulnerable while doing so. Below, the Orvathi were still recovering from the earlier attack. Cities were rebuilding, families reunited, and hope began to blossom once again. But humans did not allow complacency. Energy shields were reinforced, patrol drones continued to circle the planet, and strategic teams worked with Orvathi engineers to strengthen critical infrastructure. Humans taught them how to deploy simple defense systems that could deter marauder probes, sharing knowledge without arrogance. Counselor Lyrath observed the humans in action, feeling a mixture of awe and relief. "They do not just fight," she said to her aide Kirill. "They teach, they protect. I have never seen a species so dedicated to others." Kirill nodded. "And yet, they are dangerous to those who threaten life. I can see why the marauders feared them." Indeed, the marauders were already planning their next strike. Commander Zaith's dark fleet moved in silence, plotting a massive assault designed to overwhelm human defenses and crush Orvath once and for all. But they underestimated the humans' ingenuity. Bren anticipated their tactics. "Prepare orbital. Decoys," she ordered. "Set traps in the asteroid belt. Civilian zones remain protected. Boarding teams stay ready. We'll hit them where they least expect it." When the Marauder fleet finally approached, humans were ready. Massive cruisers moved in formation, weaving through asteroid fields that were secretly armed with hidden mines. Smaller human vessels executed daring maneuvers, appearing in multiple places at once, confusing the enemy. Lasers and missiles struck. Marauder scouts before they could report back, delaying coordination. On the planet, Orvathi citizens watched the unfolding spectacle, their awe growing with every maneuver. The humans were everywhere, not just in orbit but interacting with the planet itself. Protective shields hovered above cities, drones patrolled forests, and emergency teams were stationed along river crossings, mountain passes, and critical infrastructure. Humans thought not only of direct combat, but of every possible danger to the innocent. Bren activated her comm system. "Commander Harkin, deploy boarding teams to the lead cruisers. Disable engines, communications, and weapons. Lieutenant Ramos, execute orbital ambush patterns. Keep the marauders distracted and off balance. We hit them on all fronts." The humans struck with precision. Boarding teams penetrated multiple enemy vessels simultaneously, disabling critical systems and sowing chaos within the ranks of the marauders. Human pilots executed daring maneuvers, weaving through enemy fire and striking with pinpoint accuracy. Each move demonstrated intelligence, courage, and adaptability, the hallmarks of humanity. Marauder ships attempted to regroup, forming defensive barriers around their leaders. But humans anticipated these tactics. Using decoys and false signals, they lured the Marauder fleet into asteroid traps, where hidden mines and energy nets immobilized key vessels. Explosions flared in the void as ships were destroyed or disabled. On the ground, Orvathi engineers marveled at the humans' coordination. Small squads moved silently, repairing critical systems, deploying emergency shelters, and maintaining the energy shields that protected the cities. Children peeked from behind windows as humans communicated calmly with the locals, showing them that survival did not always mean fighting. It also meant preparation, foresight, and care. Counselor. Lirith stood beside Bren during a brief meeting on the surface. "You are incredible," she said, eyes wide. "Your people think of everything. You protect not just with weapons, but with strategy and compassion." Bren smiled briefly, brushing off the praise. "We fight to protect. That is enough." The battle continued for hours. Marauder morale began to crumble as human strategy systematically dismantled their forces. Ships that had once seemed invincible were disabled with surprising ease. Marauder commanders began to panic, unsure how to counter opponents who were as clever as they were fearless. Small human strike teams moved through the wreckage of disabled ships, securing prisoners, rescuing any surviving non-combatants, and gathering intelligence for future operations. They treated captives humanely, a concept alien to the Marauders, who relied on intimidation and brutality to control their victims. As the tide of battle turned, Bren directed a final decisive maneuver. Human ships converged on the Marauder flagship. Using a combination of feints, energy bursts, and boarding teams, they disabled the vessel's engines and weapons simultaneously. Explosions erupted along the hull as the Marauder fleet watched. In disbelief, their leader, Commander Zaith, realized defeat was inevitable. "Retreat!" Zaith roared. "Fall back to the outer sectors! Humanity! They are unstoppable!" Human ships pursued the fleeing Marauders only enough to ensure they could not regroup immediately. Bren knew the galaxy was vast, and the Marauders would survive, somewhere to return another day. But the lesson was clear. Humans were not a species to be underestimated. Below, the Orvathi celebrated cautiously. Streets were alive with cheers, but the humans remained vigilant, patrolling, repairing, and reinforcing defenses. They did not bask in glory. They focused on protection and preparation for whatever might come next. Counselor Lirith stood amid the crowds, watching humans coordinate repairs and protective measures. "They are not just warriors," she said softly. "They are guardians. They fight with power, yes, but also with heart. They think of us in every move they make." Bren, observing from her ship, reflected on the battle. "We've won today," she said quietly. "But vigilance is eternal. The galaxy is full of those who would harm the innocent. Humanity exists to stop them. We protect, we adapt, and we fight when necessary. Orvath is safe for now, but we will always be ready." As night fell on Orvath, the planet's citizens gazed at the stars. Above them, human ships glimmered like watchful sentinels, ready to respond to any threat. The planet had survived, not just because of firepower, but because humans brought a unique combination of courage, strategy, and compassion. And far away, in hidden sectors of the galaxy, whispers spread among other civilizations. Humans had arrived at Orvath. They had turned a near-defenseless planet into a fortress and had demonstrated a force that combined intelligence, courage, and moral strength. Their reputation, already growing, would spread further. Humans were protectors of the helpless and a force that could not be ignored. Bren watched the stars above, knowing the battle was far from over, but confident in her fleet. "We've bought them time," she said. "We've shown what humans can do, but we must always be ready. Humanity's edge is not just in firepower, it is in heart, strategy, and courage. That is our greatest weapon." Orvath slept peacefully for the first time in weeks. Children dreamed, families rested, and cities glimmered with protective energy, shields. The humans had brought not only safety but hope, teaching the Orvathi that even in the darkest times, courage and ingenuity could turn despair into survival. Above the planet, the stars twinkled. The human fleet stood watch, vigilant and unyielding. Humanity had shown its edge, and the galaxy would never forget it. The skies over Orvath were quiet now, but the tension lingered like a shadow. The marauders had retreated, leaving behind broken ships and fractured morale. For the first time in weeks, the Orvathi could breathe freely. The planet had survived, and the humans were still there, vigilant and unwavering. Admiral Kara Bren stood on the bridge of the Intrepid, watching the horizon. Her fleet remained in orbit, scanning the void for any sign of the marauders' return. "They've retreated," she said quietly, "but they will come back. They always do. We must prepare for that day, even if it is far away." Lieutenant Ramos looked at the fleet's remaining ships. "The planet is safe for now. Casualties among Orvathi civilians are zero, and the marauder fleet is shattered. We've done our job." Bren nodded, but she did not relax. "Yes, we have. But our work is not finished. Humanity does not just protect in battle. We leave behind the knowledge, the defenses, and the hope that will keep them safe long after we leave." Below, Counselor Lyrath moved among the recovering citizens, her antennae quivering with emotion. Streets that had been abandoned were alive again, shops reopened, and children ran through gardens and playgrounds, laughing for the first time in weeks. Energy shields still hovered over the cities, maintained by human engineers working alongside Orvathi teams. This is incredible," Lyrath whispered to Kirill as they watched the humans coordinate repairs and defenses. "Not just the battle, but the care. They think of everything. They do not leave us to fend for ourselves. They protect even the smallest child, the weakest elder." Kirill nodded. "They are extraordinary. I have never seen anything like it. Other species fight for power, for gain. Humans fight for others. That is why they are feared and respected." Meanwhile, the surviving marauder fleet had regrouped. In distant space, their leader, Commander Zaith, furious and humiliated. "These humans, they are not like any other species," he growled. "They do not fight for conquest, yet they destroy fleets larger than theirs. We cannot match them. Yet we will return. Next time we must plan differently." But for now, the humans had proven their point. They were protectors, relentless and unyielding, and the galaxy was beginning to take notice. On Orvath, Admiral Bren convened a meeting with her officers and the Orvathi Council. "We cannot stay forever," she said. "Our fleet is needed elsewhere, and the galaxy is vast. But we leave behind more than weapons or shields. We leave knowledge. The Orvathi can defend themselves better now, and that is more valuable than any fleet." Human engineers and tacticians worked with Orvathi scientists, teaching them how to maintain energy shields, deploy emergency drones, and anticipate enemy tactics. Simple but effective defensive measures were implemented across the planets, cities and critical zones. Humans did not take credit. They simply instructed, guided, and ensured the Orvathi understood. Counselor Lyrath watched with awe. "They do not just save us from battle," she said. "They teach us how to protect ourselves. They give us hope, and they give us courage." Bren addressed the council, her voice calm yet commanding. "You will be ready if they return. Humans fight for others because we understand the value of life. But now, you know how to protect your own." The Orvathi began to see the full measure of humanity. Humans were strong, yes, but their greatest strength was their combination of courage, intelligence, and compassion. They could win battles through sheer force, but they also taught others to survive, to thrive, and to hope. After several days, the human fleet prepared to depart. Ships powered up, energy shields flickered as systems came online, and boarding crews returned to their vessels. Citizens lined the streets and observation towers, waving and cheering, their gratitude almost overwhelming. Lyrath approached Admiral Bren personally. "On behalf of Orvath, I thank you. You did not just save our planet, you saved our people, our future." Bren smiled faintly. "It was our duty. Humans do not stand by when others are in danger. Remember that. Protect your people, protect your world, and be ready. Courage and ingenuity will carry you farther than weapons alone." Even as the humans prepared to leave, the Orvathi watched in awe. Ships lifted off, engines glowing bright against the night sky. And for the first time, the citizens felt the reassurance of true guardianship. They knew the humans could have demanded loyalty, tribute, or obedience, but they demanded nothing. Their presence alone had been enough. As the fleet moved, beyond the planet's orbit, Bren transmitted a final message to the Orvathi. Stay strong, be vigilant, and never forget that you are never truly alone in the galaxy. Humanity will answer again if you call. The message echoed across Orvath, and for the first time in generations, the Orvathi people felt a profound sense of security. They had witnessed courage beyond imagination, a species that fought not for conquest, but for life itself. Far away, other civilizations began to take notice. Reports of the humans' intervention spread across interstellar networks. Planets once hesitant to ally with humans reconsidered, understanding that they were not just warriors, they were protectors, innovators, and fearless in the face of danger. Tales of Orvath's salvation inspired hope across systems that had lived in fear of marauders and other predators. Even the marauders, though humiliated, would carry the story forward. Commander Zaith and his remaining forces would remember the humans, and when they plotted their next conquest, they would hesitate. Humans had shown the galaxy that courage and heart could be just as deadly as the most advanced weapons. As Orvath settled into peace, Bren looked at her fleet. "This is the result of teamwork, ingenuity, and courage," she said, "but also of compassion. We do not fight for ourselves alone. We fight because others cannot. That is humanity's edge. That is why we are feared and why we are respected." On the surface, Counselor Lyrath and her people celebrated cautiously. The Orvathi had survived, and more importantly, they had learned that even in the face of overwhelming threats, hope and courage could prevail. Humanity had not only protected them, they had taught them that survival and dignity were possible. Even in the darkest times, the humans departed, leaving behind a planet ready to defend itself and a people forever grateful. Ships disappeared into the vastness of space, engines fading into the stars, but the lesson remained. Humans were a force to be reckoned with, not only for their strength, but for their heart, courage, and relentless determination to protect the innocent. Orvath was alive, whole, and forever changed. Its citizens had witnessed the full measure of humanity, and they would remember it for generations. The galaxy, too, would remember. For the first time, the Orvathi understood something profound. When humanity answered a plea for help, it did so not with hesitation, not with calculation, but with fire, fury, and an unyielding will to protect life itself. And somewhere in the vast darkness of space, Admiral Kara Bren and her fleet moved on to their next mission, ready to face whatever threats emerged, confident in the knowledge that humanity would always answer the call. For humanity was not only a warrior species, it was a guardian of the helpless, a beacon of courage, and a force that could change the fate of worlds. The galaxy had seen fire and fury, and it had learned respect.